Welcome to Reframing the Membrane, Crossing Boundaries, where we advocate for actionable solutions for improving overall mental health and wellness by examining the challenges and resources affecting people and access to care. Each episode takes listeners through lived experiences and evidence-based research, providing practical strategies to build resilience and advocate for mind, body, and spirit well-being. Thank you for joining us as we engage with the community, health professionals, advocates, and individuals sharing their experiences. Before we get started, the content of this production may be emotionally challenging. The production will aim to inform you in advance when potentially activating material will be filmed or discussed. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Capri, and today we're talking about something I think that many of us struggle with at some point, and that is letting go. And I don't mean just moving on or pretending things didn't happen. I mean truly releasing emotional pain, the kind that keeps us up at night, the kind we replay over and over in our minds, and the kind that can shape how we see ourselves and the world. If you have ever found yourself stuck in resentment, clinging to past hurts, or struggling to let go of something you know isn't serving you, then this episode is for you. So let's start with a question. Why is letting go so hard? The answer isn't just about willpower or emotional strength. It actually has everything to do with your brain. So let's talk about the basics. Your brain isn't built to let go easily. In fact, it is designed to hold on to emotional experiences, especially the painful ones. This is because biologically speaking, pain and fear help us survive. Think about it. If you touch a hot stove, your brain remembers that pain so you don't do it again. If you've been betrayed, rejected, or experienced a painful loss, your brain holds on to those emotions to protect you from future harm. But the problem, not everything painful is a threat. So while your brain may think it's keeping you safe by holding on to old wounds, it can actually keep you stuck in a cycle of emotional suffering. We talk about the brain's emotional processing system in other episodes. So we know that the amygdala, which is your emotional alarm system, if you will, it reacts to fear, stress, and emotional intensity. And then you have your prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that's helping you to think logically, make decisions, and regulate emotions. But here's the thing. It doesn't fully develop until our mid-20s, and that means that kids don't really know how to regulate their emotions on their own, and we rely on our caregivers, our environment, and our experiences to shape how we process emotions. And so those early experiences matter. They shape the way we hold on to or let go of emotions for the rest of our lives. Here's something to think about. As you process emotions today, it's not just about what's happening now, but what happened when you were a kid. From the moment you were born, we're looking for signals of safety. We learn from our caregivers. Do my emotions get validated? Am I confronted when I'm upset? Or am I just ignored, dismissed, or punished for my emotions? These experiences shape our ability to process pain. So let's talk about that a little bit more. If you had secure attachments, your caregivers responded to your distress in a consistent, supportive way, then your brain learned that emotions are temporary and manageable. That means as an adult, you're probably better at processing emotions and letting go because your nervous system knows it's safe to do so. However, if you had inconsistent or dismissive attachment, your emotions were ignored, your caregivers were unpredictable, or if you grew up in a stressful environment, your brain may have learned that pain sticks around and that emotions aren't easily soothed. And that can make letting go feel dangerous because your brain is wired to cling to distress as a way to stay safe. More on that in a minute.
Are you ready to make a difference in your community? In our Speak Out Advocacy series, we're here to empower you to use your voice for change. Whether improving access to mental health care, reducing stigma, or shaping important social policies, this series provides the tools to create a lasting impact. If advocating for better care, breaking down barriers, or transforming mental health services speaks to your heart, this is the perfect space to learn and take action. Do you have a topic you're passionate about or need support advocating for yourself or others? We'd love to hear from you. Text the show to share your thoughts. Just check the details in the show notes. Together, let's build a community that fosters change. Keep enjoying Reframing the Membrane.
Many psychologists and psychiatrists believe that mental health and behavioral problems are easily attributed to early childhood. Let's take a step back for a second. If we're talking about why some people struggle to let go more than others, we have to talk about attachment theory. Because here's the truth: your ability to release emotional pain starts forming before you can even talk. One of the most well-known researchers in attachment psychology, Dr. John Bowlby, proposed that humans are biologically wired to form strong emotional bonds for survival. Think about it. Babies are born completely dependent on their caregivers. They don't just cry to express needs. They cry because staying close to a caregiver increases their chances of survival. In Bowlby's attachment theory, it suggested that how we bond with our first caregivers, especially in the first 2 to 5 years of life, shapes our ability to form relationships and process emotions as adults. And here's where it gets really interesting. Our early attachment experiences become a mental blueprint that we unconsciously use in all future relationships, including our relationship with ourselves and our emotions. In this attachment theory, it is believed that children don't form random attachments. They form one primary attachment, something that we call monotropy. Usually, this is when the mother, but it can be any other primary caregiver. It's when this bond becomes the foundation for all emotional regulation skills. If the child feels safe, seen, and soothed, their nervous systems learn that emotions can be managed and released. But if this bond is inconsistent, neglectful, or disrupted, that child may grow up feeling uncertain about emotional safety, leading to difficulty in trusting others, managing emotions, and ultimately letting go. The big takeaway here is that your brain creates an internal working model based on your first attachment relationship. This is basically your brain's default setting for relationships and emotions. Let's break this down into some core parts. If your caregiver was responsive, you learn people are safe and you can rely on others for comfort. If your caregiver was inconsistent, you may develop mistrust or fear of abandonment. If you were comforted when distressed, your brain learns, I am worthy of love. If your emotions were dismissed or ignored, your brain may assume, my emotions don't matter, I need to suppress them. So this gets into the, am I worthy of love? Am I worthy of care? Am I trustworthy of people? And then how do I handle distress? So this is really a model of emotional regulation. If you were soothed as a baby, you might internalize the ability to self-soothe and let go of pain. But if you had distress and it was ignored, then you might struggle with emotional avoidance or clinging to pain. So the takeaway is that your earliest relationships taught your brain how to hold on to or release emotions. So what happens when a child's primary attachment bond is broken or inconsistent? Bowlby's maternal deprivation hypothesis suggested that if a child is separated from their primary caregiver in the first 2 years of life without a stable replacement, so it could lead to long-term emotional and cognitive difficulties. And this could include difficulty regulating emotions, increased anxiety and fear of abandonment, struggles with relationships and trust, and a tendency to suppress or avoid emotions rather than process them. The famous 44 Thieves study found that children who experienced early separation without emotional stability were far more likely to show a lack of empathy, difficulty forming relationships, and emotional numbness. Now, does this mean that if you had a disrupted attachment, you're doomed? No, absolutely not. What it does mean, though, is that your brain may have developed different emotional coping strategies, and some of them might not serve you well as an adult. So that's why we spend time talking about coping strategies, resilience, and emotional regulation, and really exploring how trauma may manifest in the mind, body, and then how all that is connected. So this ties into letting go into adulthood. If you think about your upbringing, and perhaps you're in a home where emotions were validated and comforted, you probably learned that emotions come and go and it's safe to let them go. If you were ignored or punished, you may have learned that emotions are overwhelming or unsafe, so you suppress them or hold on to them. This is why letting go isn't just a decision, it's a nervous system response. Your brain is holding on to emotions that in that same way that it learned to do as a child. But the best part is that we talk about the neuroplasticity of the brain and it can change. So even if you didn't have a secure attachment as a child, you can retrain and reframe your brain to feel safer letting go. So how do we start to undo old attachment patterns and rewire our brain to let go? One is to recognize the pattern. Ask yourself, how was I taught to handle emotions as a child? Do I cling to emotions? Do I suppress them? Or do I fear them? Awareness is the first step in reframing the membrane. Another step is to practice self-soothing techniques. So just like a securely attached child learns to self-soothe, we have to teach our adult brains how to do this. That's why we talk a lot about deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation, even journaling and meditation. These are all ways to signal safety to the nervous system. And then I'll talk more about radical acceptance. Instead of fighting emotions or getting stuck in the past, practice saying, this happened, I don't like it, but I can't change it, and I choose to stop resisting it. This is how we start to create new emotional patterns by choosing acceptance over resistance. So I want you to take away that your ability to let go is not just about willpower. It's about how your brain was wired from childhood, but that wiring can be changed. And we'll dive deeper into radical acceptance and how to actively practice letting go in the present moment as we continue our conversation. More in a minute. Progressive muscle relaxation is an exercise that reduces stress and anxiety in your body by having you slowly tense and then relax each muscle. This exercise can provide an immediate feeling of relaxation, but it's best to practice frequently. With experience, you will become more aware of when you are experiencing tension, and you'll have a skill that can help you relax. During this exercise, each muscle should be tensed, but not to the point of strain. If you have any injuries or pain, you can skip the affected areas, but pay special attention to the feeling of releasing tension in each muscle and the resulting feeling of relaxation. So let's begin. Sit back or lie down in a comfortable position. Close your eyes if you're comfortable and able to do so. Begin by taking a deep breath and noticing the feeling of air filling your lungs. Hold your breath for a few seconds. Release the breath slowly and let the tension leave your body. Take in another deep breath and hold it. Again, slowly release the air. Even slower now. Take another breath. Fill your lungs and hold the air. Slowly release the breath and imagine the feeling of tension leaving your body. Now, move your attention to your feet. Begin to tense your feet by curling your toes and the arch of your foot. Hold on to the tension and notice what it feels like. Release the tension in your foot. Notice the new feeling of relaxation. Next, begin to focus on your lower leg. Tense the muscles in your calves. Hold them tightly and pay attention to the feeling of tension. Release the tension from your lower legs. Again, notice the feeling of relaxation. Remember to continue taking deep breaths. Next, tense the muscles of your upper leg and pelvis. You can do this by tightly squeezing your thighs together. Make sure you feel tenseness without going to the point of strain. And release. Feel the tension leave your muscles. Begin to tense your stomach and chest. You can do this by sucking your stomach in, squeeze harder, and hold the tension a little bit longer. Release the tension. Allow your body to go limp. Let yourself notice the feeling of relaxation. Continue taking deep breaths. Breathe in slowly through your nose, noticing the air fill your lungs and hold it. Release the air slowly. Feel it leaving your lungs. Next, tense the muscles in your back by bringing your shoulders together behind you. Hold them tightly. Tense them as hard as you can without straining, and keep holding. Release the tension from your back. Feel the tension slowly leaving your body and the new feeling of relaxation. Notice how different your body feels when you allow it to relax. Tense your arms all the way from your hands to your shoulders. Make a fist and squeeze all the way up your arm and hold it. Release the tension from your arms and shoulders. Notice the feeling of relaxation in your fingers, hands, arms, and shoulders. Notice how your arms feel limp and at ease. Now move up to your neck and your head. Tense your face and your neck by distorting the muscles around your eyes and mouth. Release the tension again. Notice the new feeling of relaxation. Finally, tense your entire body. Tense your feet, legs, stomach, chest, arms, head, and neck. Tense harder without straining. Now hold the tension. Now release. Allow your whole body to go limp. Pay attention to the feeling of relaxation and how different it is from the feeling of tension. Begin to wake your body up by slowly moving your muscles, adjust your arms and legs, and now stretch your muscles and open your eyes when you're ready. This technique is provided to you by Therapist Aid. Welcome back. Okay, so we know that letting go isn't about just willpower. It's about how our brain is wired, how we learned to regulate emotions as kids, and how we've been conditioned to process pain. So what do we do about it? One of the most powerful and science-backed approaches to emotional release is a skill from dialectical behavior therapy called radical acceptance. And I'll be honest with you, this skill can change your life. Before we go any further, let me ask you this. Have you ever wished something didn't happen? Have you ever felt stuck in a loop of this isn't fair or this shouldn't have happened? Have you ever tried to move on, but your mind keeps pulling you back to what was? If you said yes to any of these, you're not alone. And here's the reality. Our suffering is often rooted not in the event itself, but in our resistance to it. Radical acceptance is about fully and completely accepting reality as it is, without resistance, without denial, and without judgment. It means saying, this happened, I don't like it, I wouldn't have chosen it, but I accept that it's real and I stop fighting it. And here's why it's so important. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain is what happens when we experience loss, betrayal, disappointment, or grief. Suffering happens when we resist that pain, when we hold on to it, replay it, and wish it were different. Radical acceptance is about releasing suffering by choosing to accept reality. So let's talk about what it is and what it isn't a bit more. It is acknowledging what happened without judgment. It is releasing resistance so we can move forward. And it is about allowing emotions to flow through instead of suppressing them. It isn't approving of what happened, pretending something didn't hurt or happen, or letting someone off the hook. Acceptance is not about saying what happened was okay. It's about saying that it did happen and no amount of wishing will undo it. And that's hard. It's really hard because our minds want to fight reality, but in doing so, we only prolong our suffering. Here's where the neuroscience kicks in to explain some of this. When we resist emotions, we activate the amygdala. This is the part of the brain that we know by now is responsible for the fear, the stress, and emotional intensity. When we practice radical acceptance, we are engaging in our prefrontal cortex, which is where our regulation of emotion and a sense of safety is created. Studies have shown that radical acceptance reduces emotional distress, lowers stress levels, and improves mental health outcomes for people experiencing PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And this isn't just theoretical. When we train our brain to accept reality rather than fight it, we build new neural pathways that allow emotions to move through us rather than get stuck. Now that we understand a little more about what radical acceptance is, let's practice it. If you're in a place where you can sit quietly, I want you to try this with me. Close your eyes if you're comfortable and you feel safe and you're able to do so. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Bring to mind something that you've been struggling to let go of. Notice where in your body you feel it. Is it in your chest, your stomach, your jaw, somewhere else? Just observe it. No judgment, just awareness, right? So you're going to close your eyes if you're able. Take a deep breath in through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Bring to mind something you've been struggling to let go of. Just notice where it is sitting in your body. Where do you feel it? Maybe it's in your chest, it's in your stomach, it's in your jaw, maybe it's in your head, maybe it's in your back. Just observe it with no judgment, just awareness. Now I want you to ask yourself, what am I resisting? What part of this do I not want to accept? Say it out loud or in your mind. I don't want this to be true. I wish it didn't happen. I don't want to feel this way. So you're naming the resistance. Just name it, acknowledge it, don't fight it, just notice it. Now I want you to take a deep breath in through the nose, hold it for a moment, and as you exhale, whisper the words, I release. Take a deep breath in through the nose, hold it for a moment, and as you exhale, whisper the words, I release. I release anger, I release regret, I release the need for it to be different. Whatever it is that you need to release, whatever that resistance is, you've named it, you've claimed it, now you're releasing it. So I want you to imagine yourself loosening your grip on this pain just a little. You don't have to force it away, just soften around it. Now, if you're able, place your hand on your heart or wherever you feel tension and say to yourself, I am allowed to feel this. I don't have to carry this forever. I give myself permission to let go, little by little. And I want you to take one more deep breath in through the nose, hold it, and as you exhale through the mouth, imagine the weight lifting just a bit. This is not a one-time event, it's a practice. If you do this regularly, you'll start to notice less emotional reactivity, more inner peace, a greater ability to release pain without suppressing it. There are a few practices that you can use daily to strengthen your radical acceptance muscle. You could journal for closure, write a goodbye letter to something you're holding on to. You don't have to send it, just let your emotions out. Breath work and body scans, which I've been teaching in some of the other episodes, and I'll include one of the exercise activities in a moment, just as a refresher, so you can incorporate this into your practice and self-care routine. Progressive muscle relaxation or yoga, mindful breathing, these all can help to release stored emotional tension. And then mindfulness and visualization. I want you to imagine placing your pain in a flowing river and just watching it drift away. Or visualize a younger version of yourself offering them love and compassion. When you think about radical love and what that means, I remember having an opportunity as a teenager meeting bell hooks, and bell hooks was so powerful in narrating, storytelling, communication, but also in empowerment. And I recall Bell Hooks talking about radical love and how it meant to be aggressively and unapologetically, deeply in love or loving of yourself and others without any need for a reward. Just radical love. And it's the same with radical acceptance. You want to just imagine yourself thriving and loving on yourself and others without any need for reward, which is very different, right? When we think about attachment theory teaches us that from the start, we need these attachments, we need these rewards. And so our behaviors are often formed as a result of something that we need or a response that we're expecting from someone else, usually your primary caregiver. But as we grow into adulthood, we get to the point where self-care is so instrumental in our ability to heal, to persevere, to build up those coping skills, to regulate our emotions, that being able to aggressively and unapologetically deeply love is a wonderful, phenomenal experience. And so I encourage you to be able to release, to practice closure for things that don't serve you, and to really focus on strengthening those radical acceptance and love muscles so that you can have that peace and that prosperity that you deserve. So when an old memory or painful thought surfaces later on tonight, or as you go throughout your day, I want you to pause, take a deep breath, whisper to yourself, I accept this moment as it is, and let go just a little. You don't have to force it. Just allow the space for it to move through. Because remember, letting go isn't about forgetting, it's about freeing yourself. Thank you for being here, for showing up for yourself, and for choosing to reframe your emotional patterns. Join me in the next episode where we'll explore the neuroscience of anxiety and continue to learn how we can reframe our stress response. Until then, keep practicing radical acceptance and love, and know that you are capable of healing and you are all deserving of love.